Imagine looking up and seeing a sharp edge in the sky, a distinct border where Earth supposedly ends. If Earth had an edge, a literal drop-off into the unknown, it would undoubtedly be one of the most spectacular and terrifying sights ever observed. And in the speculative minds of flat earthers, this idea is more than fantasy, it's their proposed reality. From diagonal trees to spotlight suns, their world is full of curious ideas. And while science has continuously proven the Earth is round, exploring the idea of a flat Earth through a scientific lens not only uncovers the flaws in such logic, but also highlights the beautiful complexity of our actual planet. The worldview that once was. For thousands of years, early civilizations believed the Earth was flat. It made intuitive sense. The ground looks and feels flat, and the horizon appears to stretch straight out. But everything changed with Nicholas Copernicus. In the 16th century, Copernicus proposed that the Earth wasn't the center of the universe. In fact, it orbited the sun, just like other planets. This was a revolutionary idea that set off a scientific revolution. Fast forward 500 years, and despite satellites, space missions, and a mountain of physics, some people around the globe still believe the Earth is flat. They argue that governments and scientists have fabricated evidence of a spherical planet. Let's examine what life would actually be like if they were right. Gravity on a flat Earth. Gravity is what causes celestial bodies to form into spheres. Matter attracts other matter equally in all directions, and the most efficient way to balance this pull is through a sphere. But flat earthers often deny gravity altogether. Instead, they propose that the Earth is constantly accelerating upward, giving the illusion of gravity. But here's the problem: constant acceleration requires constant energy. And eventually, the Earth would be moving at speeds that break the laws of relativity. More scientifically accurate? Gravity would still exist on a flat Earth, but it would behave in strange ways. In a disc-shaped planet, the center would exert the strongest gravitational pull. As you move toward the edges, gravity would pull you back toward the center. You'd feel as though you were climbing uphill. Trees would grow at odd angles, leaning inward. Water, instead of lying flat, would pool toward the middle, forming an enormous ocean at the disk's center. The edge of the world. Flat earthers believe Antarctica isn't a continent at the bottom of the globe, but rather a massive ice wall that surrounds the perimeter of the Earth. This great wall of ice is said to keep the oceans from spilling over the edge. But if gravity were pulling toward the center of the disk, getting to that wall would be nearly impossible. The gravitational pull would be so strong, you'd feel like you were climbing a vertical slope. Your legs might give out before you reached the outer ring. Even stranger, objects near the edge would fall at an angle instead of straight down. Precipitation like rain and snow would drift inward, creating a concentrated weather system at the center, likely resulting in constant storms and flooding in that area. Air pressure and breathability. On a round Earth, gravity holds the atmosphere close, allowing breathable air to exist at the surface. On a flat Earth, gravity's uneven distribution would cause the atmosphere to be denser at the center and thinner at the edges. That would make breathing nearly impossible for people living in regions like Flat Earth Australia. At the center, atmospheric pressure would be crushing. It would likely be too high for human life. Ironically, the place where you'd most want to be to avoid falling off the edge might also be the least hospitable. Say goodbye to the magnetic field. Earth's magnetic field is generated by the motion of molten iron in its spinning outer core. This magnetic field deflects harmful solar radiation and helps retain our atmosphere. A flat Earth would likely lack such a core, and with it, no protective magnetic field. Without that shield, solar radiation would bombard the surface, increasing cancer rates and DNA mutations. Over time, the atmosphere would erode, spilling into space and leaving the Earth uninhabitable. Rethinking sunlight, time, and seasons. Flat earthers propose that the sun and moon are much smaller than we think, only about 50 kilometers, 31 miles, wide, and that they orbit above the disk, like spotlights in a theater. But if this were the case, we would always see the sun in the sky, even if it wasn't shining directly overhead. Its light would scatter in all directions. And this setup would eliminate the day-night cycle as we know it. Instead of a spinning globe experiencing sunrise and sunset, Everyone would exist in a kind of eternal twilight or perpetual day. Time zones wouldn't exist. Everyone would share the same time, regardless of location. Seasons would vanish as well, since those are caused by Earth's axial tilt in orbit. Without that tilt, every day would be nearly the same length and temperature unless the sun's orbit varied in some other magical way. The anti-moon and eclipses. In a flat Earth model, lunar eclipses are a bit of a conundrum. On a round Earth, eclipses happen when the Earth casts a shadow on the moon. Flat Earthers propose the existence of an anti-moon to explain this phenomenon. This mysterious object supposedly moves in such a way that it occasionally obscures the moon. But there's no evidence for such a celestial body. And even if one existed, its orbit would need to be extraordinarily precise to cause eclipses at the right moments. Once again, science demands more than just speculation. Physics breaks down. If the Earth were flat, physics as we know it would fall apart. Satellite technology, GPS, global communication systems, and even basic air travel rely on a round Earth model. Planes navigate using calculations based on the curvature of the Earth. Remove that curvature, and everything from flight patterns to rocket launches becomes incoherent. Even basic geometry begins to unravel. The principles of navigation that have guided humanity across oceans for centuries are founded on a spherical model. Flat Earth theory would require reinventing all of these systems from the ground up. The rise of conspiracies. Flat Earth is often just the tip of the iceberg. Believing in it tends to lead to questioning other well-established facts like the moon landing, vaccines, or climate change. This is a phenomenon called cognitive dissonance, where people hold on to beliefs despite overwhelming contradictory evidence. In a world full of misinformation, it's easy to fall into echo chambers where pseudoscience flourishes. But belief doesn't make something true. And sometimes, skepticism without scientific reasoning becomes a dangerous path. If the flat Earth theory were true, let's humor the idea one last time. If the Earth were truly flat, everything about life as we know it would change. Weather patterns would become chaotic. Ocean tides wouldn't function correctly without the moon's gravitational pull. Airplanes would never reach their destinations. Communication satellites wouldn't stay in orbit. The night sky would look entirely different. There would be no international space stations, no Mars rovers, no GPS. All of these things depend on orbital mechanics and spherical physics. In the end, the flat Earth model isn't just a harmless belief, it's one that unravels centuries of scientific understanding and technological advancement. While it might be entertaining to imagine an ice-walled pancake planet with diagonal trees and spotlight suns, it remains a work of fantasy. But if you're into odd planetary theories, you might enjoy this next one. What if Earth were shaped like a donut?